Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Friday, July 12th. We're here. We're going to be breaking it down. We got 12 games on both slates to go over, and I think it's going to be a fun slate. A lot of different ways to go. And before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. I want to bring up, once again, through the app stores, iOS or Android, there is a free 7-day trial for those that have never tried LineStar. Use that, give us a try, and then kind of just join us. $239.99 per year, $20 a month is the best deal you will get in the industry. $39.99 per month if you want to do a monthly is a good deal as well, just not quite as good as that yearly price. Come join us. Let's get involved. We got a lot of fun to go over the next couple months. We're in the middle of best ball summer for NFL. Football starts right around the corner. And let's start off today's show with going over the perfect lineups and the winning lineups from both FanDuel and DraftKings, starting with the FanDuel lineup. After this, we'll get into pitchers and stacks to consider. All right, so yesterday's perfect lineup on FanDuel, we went with Aaron Nola. 52 points. The man went nuts. I did say yesterday I worried that he didn't have much of a ceiling, but that he was good enough to pitch against anybody, and he absolutely was. He did great. So congrats to you, Aaron Nola. You surprised me, and you were part of the perfect lineup. And then we had a two-man Seattle stack, two-man Cubs stack, two-man Boston. One off with Gavin Lux getting in there. So quite the perfect lineup. And then the winning lineup went to Cycros, who had won 10K. They had Tanner Huck, who had a game, 46, was a chalk pitcher. Nola, beat that number by 6. So you definitely could have beat Cycros here, but they did outstanding. And what we had here was a 3-man Seattle stack, 2-man Philly, and then a few one-offs that got it done. So congrats to them. And let's go check out that DraftKings lineup now. So we got Aaron Nola, we had Tanner Huck, then we have a 2-man Seattle, 2-man Cubs, and then one-offs from there. Gavin Lux made both lineups. Yoshida made both lineups. Marsh had himself a day, and the winning lineup went to Giant Squid, who won 50K. They had Brandon Paft, who just had a game. He was chalky, but went 6 innings, had 4Ks, got the win, and then Aaron Nola obviously did well. He is in both perfect lineups. After that, we have a good old 4-man Seattle stack and 4-man Cubs stack that got it done. So good old 4-4. So congrats to Giant Squid. You just eked out FJ Bourne by 0.2 for the win. And let's see, FJ Bourne, he had Miami sprinkled in and didn't just stick to the good old Seattle stack. So he had a 5-man Cubs, 2-man Miami with a one-off of Cal Riley. And good old Jesus Sanchez just didn't quite get there for him. Well, or Morel didn't get there for him. All right. All in all, good slate yesterday. Let's get into today. Let's get into the game. All right. Highest owned pitcher on DraftKings is Joe Ryan, 21% owned, 4-star alert score. We got a solid projection of him, 2.2x value, 21 score. He's going against the Giants that really don't scare anybody these days. Now, Ryan has a solid amount of upside, especially in a matchup where the Giants are striking out almost 24% of the time. The only scary part is his StatCast data. Now, diving into this, it is only 33% hard contact, a little bit elevated, but on the lower side of elevated hard contact. The scary thing is 45% fly balls and 7 barrel balls. Now, the thing with the fly balls, We are in San Francisco. This stadium is just not very conducive to home runs and hitting. So that fly ball number is a lot less scary at a stadium like this. Meanwhile, digging into the Giants. So over the last 150 games versus righties, only hitting 234, 156 ISO, 311 WOBA. Not very good. However, they have been better recently. 244, 187 ISO, 323 WOBA. So they have been a little bit better. I'll give him that. But all in all, I think this is a good matchup. No surprise seeing him as one of the higher owned options. I think there are several pitchers on this slate that we can go to. We don't have to go with the chalk pitching today. And we're going to get into some more now. Next, we got Freddie Peralta. He's just slightly less owned, but 5-star alert score. And you got a 3.96 FIP over his last 20, 4.18 over his last 5. Now, he has been allowing a lot of stolen bases recently. Washington is a team that can steal a couple extra bags. And Freddie Peralta is averaging 25.6% more fantasy points at home. So he does get a good spot. Being at home, he is better there. StatCast data is a little scary, but very similar to what Joe Ryan's is, with 44% fly balls, just under 33% hard contact. But he's just not allowing as many barreled balls. Peralta can miss a lot of bats, and Washington can strike out a decent amount, 21.5%. Like the Giants, Washington has been hitting better versus righties lately. 276 ISO, or average, 173 ISO, 354 WOBA. So they have been hitting decently lately. So you got to give that to Washington. Just seeing that Washington logo, it is not as good of a matchup as you would think. And in the past, it is only 33 plate attempts. So it's like a game worth of plate attempts or slightly over. So a 281 average, 219 ISO, 340 WOBA over that span. Because it is a smaller sample size, I'm not going to look too much into that. But it is, worth noting a little bit here. And we have a 23% combined K rate at 9.7K. Definitely of interest. Next, we got Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray versus the Chicago Cubs, where he has struggled a little bit. 45 plate attempts, 325 average, 225 ISO, almost a 400 WOBA. Now, he had a great game versus them earlier this year. 74 pitches, going 5 innings and 8 Ks. Last year he did well against them. The data where he did bad, was all kind of a while ago. So I'm not weighing too much on that data here. And he's averaging almost 46% more fantasy points at home. The Cubs strike out at 25% versus righties. They got a low WOBA. I think this is an interesting spot, and I am absolutely willing to plug in some Sonny Gray. My issue with him, he is very, very efficient, so it isn't as scary as it is with some other pitchers, but he's averaging 85 pitches a game, and it's just kind of hard to really, really get those ceiling numbers with that type of pitch count. However, he has a bunch of games in the 30s this year, and can he do it in this slate? I absolutely think so. We've met a 27.1% combined K rate, 2.1x. I think he's very interesting. The pitch count is my only real worry about him. Next, Hunter Brown. Man, he just has had a tale of two halves for this. I guess tale of two quarters, because we're at the halfway point here of the season. He was our favorite, pitcher to pick on for a good part of this season. And the last, 7-8 starts, he has been just electric. 2.67 FIP over his last 5 starts. 26% K rate. StatCast data looks good. He is allowing 46% fly balls, but it's only 18% hard contact. I'm really not worried about those fly balls if they're not hitting the ball very well. A lot of these are just weak pop-ups, and I will take that can of corn all day long. Now, Texas has beat him up a little bit. 83 plate attempts, 342 average, 165 ISO, 373 WOBA. 83 plate attempts is also a decent amount of plate attempts. They've really got to him. Got to him earlier this season. Got to him a couple times last year. And, I mean, he is definitely a different pitcher right now than he was at the beginning of the season. When they got to him, it was the second start of his season. So I do think he fares better, but there is absolutely some hesitation here. We saw him go through periods last year too where he was just dominant, looked amazing, looked great, and then he falls off. And he fell off for the rest of the season last year. Started the season poorly. Now he's back to being dominant again. So is this run of domination going to keep continuing today, or is he going to start falling off? Now, the pricing of him, I think, is very, very interesting because at 8.2K, he can give you that ceiling of some of those 10K guys can. But you do have the worry that he drops back down to that guy that is always in like the mid-teens, and that's just not going to do anything for you. I think he's interesting. I think you should probably have some of him because of that ceiling, but I am a little worried about him. So next, Cole Riggins. Guy has been absolutely incredible. Now, there's nice hitting weather in Boston again today. I got to point out one thing, and we've been picking on Boston a lot lately, or picking on the opponent of Boston. Last few days, it was Oakland and Boston pretty much did well in all those games. Most of those are all against righties. Now, there's a big difference with this Boston team and righties versus lefties. They are not very good versus lefties. 130 ISO, 295 WOBA, striking out at almost 28%. And then over the last 22 games, 222 average, they have hit the ball hard with a 180 ISO, but under 300 WOBA. So I'm very, very interested in Cole in this spot, even though this Boston team has been hitting lately, has been hot. It's good hitting weather, but I think Cole can do well. Now, there is a couple spots that I am a little worried about. 50% fly balls with winds blowing out, warm weather at a hitter-friendly park is scary, especially when it comes with 35% hard contact. And there's been a moderate amount of barreled balls allowed by Cole. So there is absolutely some cause for concern, but there is giant ceiling. 29.7% combined K rate at 8.5K. I like the spot for Riggins, and I'm definitely going to have some of him because that ceiling is there. And at 8.5K, I can't totally pass that up. Next, Garrett Crochet. Guy has been just ridiculous this season. 2.42 FIP, 1.5 over the last 5, 35% K rate, and now he's facing Pittsburgh, who's striking out at 28%. He's averaging 38% more at home. I got to love this spot for Mr. Garrett Crochet here at 10.3K, 2.4x value. Combined K rate is giant. I think it makes a ton of sense to try and go to him today, and I'm definitely willing to do it. Sean Manaea, I really wish his price was a little bit lower because he doesn't carry near the upside as some of these guys at similar price points as him, but he is in a very good spot. Colorado is just terrible. They're terrible away from Colorado. They're in a more pitcher-friendly park now. The one thing is they can't hit the ball hard versus lefties, but they're striking out at 27%. They still have a low WOBA. I think there is some real solid upside for Manaea in this spot. One thing I got to bring up is that he only strikes out 22% or 24% over the last 5 starts. 25.6% combined K rate at 8.6K is definitely interesting. You got to like the spot versus the Rockies. But there's obviously some worries here. Just the fact that I mean, he lacks a little bit of upside, and he's 8.6K. He's pushing 9K and hasn't had a 30-point game all season. However, at his price, 28, even, 26 could probably get it done for you. So I'm intrigued with him. I'm definitely going to have some. Like that he's a little bit lower owned. Not going to go totally overboard. Carson Spears. Thing that's crazy to me, and I got to bring this up, and why I'm going to like some Miami hitters, 49% fly balls. Hard contact rate has been low, but he's been out allowing a decent amount of barreled balls. I would not be surprised if there's a home run or two. He allowed 3 versus Detroit last time out, allowed 1 versus St. Louis. Has got tagged a little bit. So I don't mind, having a little bit of Miami today as a stack. I don't know if I'm going to mess around with going with Carson much, but he's not necessarily out of the player pool. Garrett Cole, 9.2K. The biggest thing here, one, nobody's going there. It's a tough matchup. He hasn't looked like himself yet this season. But he did have 8 Ks. He went 90 pitches last game out. And the time before that, went 90 pitches, had 6 Ks. He's probably around 90, maybe 95-ish today. And it's only a matter of time till we see a blow-up game out of him. He's clearly starting to get back into form. He's having those strikeouts. He just hasn't been able to stop runs yet. But it's only a matter of time till that happens. Am I going to play him today? Probably not really much. Maybe in a lineup or two because he's a little lower owned, but I'm not going wild on Cole. Tyler Anderson versus Mariners. They've been hitting very, very well lately, and they hit lefties hard. 203 ISO over the last 20 with 347 WOBA, 263 average. Meanwhile, Anderson's allowing 43% fly balls, but only 21% hard contact. I don't really like picking on Tyler Anderson. I think he is a solid pitcher that is very good at having a very similar outcome game in and game out. He gives up 1 to 4 runs, goes, 5-6 innings, and moves it on to the bullpen to keep his team in the game. He's not a guy I like to pick on, but he's also not a guy I like to use for fantasy very much. And I think his price needs to be lower for me to really want to go there at a 20% combined K rate. Andrew Heaney versus the Astros. Don't really want to pick on the Astros. I do have to throw in there, though, that Heaney has been solid lately. 3.8 FIP, 3.3 over his last 5, 28% K rate over his last 5. So he's been pitching very, very good. And we have him at a 25.8% combined K rate at 7.4K. For that alone, at his price point, I am intrigued. But the chance of me pulling that trigger is probably very low. Would probably only have him a couple. And it's a DK SP2 only type play. It's not for me on FanDuel. Spencer Swallenbach has actually been pitching very, very good lately. And I like him as a pitcher, but I think this is a tough spot. San Diego's just not striking out enough. So I worry about him a little bit for that reason. However, he's 7.6K, and Padres have Vasquez on the mound, so I would not be surprised if the Braves beat the Padres decently today, which really pains me to say, as I have several friends that are Braves fans, and they're going to rub it in. All in all, he is possible play, but I'm not going on my way to pick him. Man, I just wish Brian Wu would. I wish they would let him, throw more pitches. I think this kid's good, just not getting there pitch count wise. Outside of that, I'm pretty much over everybody else, so let's move it on to FanDuel. like I said, there's a lot of pitchers that we can talk about here today. So let's get in there. All right. So 22% owned. Freddie Peralta is our highest owned on FanDuel. I like him. Not shying away for him. Definitely will use him. Cole Reagans is next. Should mention that he is only at 3x for us. So clearly the worst value of the higher owned guys projection wise for us. With that being said, I wouldn't totally fade him, but he is one of the least likely of the high owned guys that I will be pushing in. Next, Garrett Crochet, 11K. That price is up there. We have him at 3.9x. He's in a very good spot. 5-star alert score. I'm absolutely intrigued to go there. Love the spot for him. Now, 11K is pricey for him, but on a 12-game slate, we should be able to piece together enough value to really make that work. Sean Manaea, 8.8K. We have him at 4.1x value. My only worry for him is that the upside. You know, we have a lot of 9, 10, 11K pitchers here that have that 50, 60 point upside, and we haven't seen that from Manaea. So he's pretty much topped out at 45, 46. And I think it's going to be hard for him to get any higher. Now, you're getting big time salary difference, so if you can make that go a long way hitting wise, then he's totally in play with that type of ceiling, but we may need an outlier performance from him to really win you a GPP. Joe Ryan's going lower owned here on FanDuel, and I'm here for it. I think he's very, very interesting. He has that 50-point ceiling. He's under 10K. I'm intrigued. And then Sonny Gray at 10.4 is absolutely in play. Got to bring up Hunter Brown again, too. 9.1K. Has that ceiling that can get you 50, as he has a few times, or he's been right around that. So only a little more expensive than Manaea, but way scarier pick, just because when he's rolling. But if he falls off a little bit, he really starts to get hit, as we saw versus Minnesota last time out, where he gave up 7 runs in 6 innings. Outside of those guys on FanDuel, I'm probably not really going to anybody else down here. I could click that Garrett Cole name because we know he has that upside. He's going deep enough pitch count wise now that he's in consideration. But outside of him, you know, there's nobody else I'm really thinking about. So we are talking about Garrett Cole up are in play for me today. Now, let's get back over to DraftKings for some stack attacks. Big boy slate. It doesn't look like weather is really going to be too much of a concern today. It does appear that the spots where there is potential weather, it's either just going to be a delay or a late start and play situation. I mean, it is summer. There's pop-ups all over the East Coast. So make sure you watch weather as we come into lock, as always. But as of now, I think all the games are going to play. And we will start off with the highest value play of the day. All right. Miami, highest value play. Talked about how Carson Spires is allowing a ton of fly balls. Miami has several guys that can take advantage of that. So it's definitely pretty interesting. Next, we got Yanni Chirinos taking on Cincinnati. Cheerios. Chirinos. And 3.7 FIP. 5.37 over his last 20. I do think he's a better pitcher than that 5.37 number, but Cincinnati is very interesting. They score fantasy points a lot of different ways and is in Great American Small Park. I think you got to consider him. Miami is also in Great American Small Park, so you got to remember that potential for home runs is absolutely there, and they are all over the value rating. Now, let's go over and check out the highest owned for this slate. Another day where my internet's lagging a little bit. Sorry, y'all. All right, so Miami is also the highest owned. So big time value and highest owned. That tells me that DraftKings is probably going to have a lot of two kind of high owned, high priced pitchers. Makes me like the, guys that are a little cheaper, a little bit more, just because you can get different fairly easy with your hitters. Cincinnati is also there. They were another value stack. Pretty interesting to see that. Next, let's go to the highest projected. And our highest projected for today, I clicked it right. Yep, Cincinnati. Man, so highest owns liking that game. The highest projected is liking that game. Pretty interesting there that everybody is on that game, and it's a 12-game slate, so there are so many different ways to go. Now let's check the highest ceiling. I think it's very interesting when we have ownership and projections and values all going to one game. Just so many different ways to get different. And the whole reason people are probably going there is because Great American Small Park. It is warm, but wind is light. Cincinnati is also highest ceiling. Mets are popping up versus Tanner Gordon a little bit. That is extremely interesting. The Mets have been hitting the ball very well. They're at home. They're giant favorites. Definitely intrigued there. Boston versus Ravens. Only issue there is that Boston has struggled versus lefties a little bit. And then let's click the teams here to get an overall view, and we can talk about some more stacks here because we've really only talked about a couple. So it's pretty interesting on that aspect. Now, highest implied run total. We got Boston versus Cole Reagans. Now, Boston has one of the higher ceilings we saw. They aren't that high owned because of the matchup, but they still have that 5 implied run total. I think it's very, very interesting. Cincinnati, also at 5. KC, we didn't talk about at all, versus Boston. I think it's Criswell that will be starting for Boston. It's not official at this point yet, but I don't mind some KC. You're getting that really good hitting weather versus an offense that can beat you both running and home runs, do a lot of different things. Mets also at 5. Very intriguing. That Colorado bullpen's terrible. Tanner Gordon is allowing hard contact, high average X velocity. Arizona versus Guerrero Rodriguez. Rodriguez has been very good lately, but we've seen him get blown up in the past, and that bullpen behind him is awful. Yankees versus Pavich. Yankees crush lefties, so it's absolutely interesting here. Plus 6.39 FIP on the year, 6.17 over the last 5 starts. That is intriguing. Milwaukee, very good offense versus Rutledge, who hasn't been a very good pitcher. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. Good offense versus bad pitcher. Seattle, they've been hitting well lately, but I don't love their spot versus Tyler Anderson, but I do love the bullpen behind Tyler Anderson. Love picking on them, that is. St. Louis, Kyle Hendricks can get lit up. He's been in good form recently, but he can get shelled, and that Seattle offense is getting a lot better. Atlanta Braves. I am very intrigued on the Braves. I don't think Vasquez is very good. Now, the one thing is that they haven't been hitting righties very well. So that is a little intriguing to just kind of say that Atlanta doesn't really get there. However, Padres have several bullpen guys that can really give up some home runs, give some late runs, and I just don't see Vasquez working that deep into games. So quite intriguing to go there. Pittsburgh, their bullpen's terrible. Not sure who their pitcher is yet, but picking on a value with a White Sox stack versus Pittsburgh isn't a terrible idea. Toronto's been hitting way better, and I don't mind occasionally trying to pick on Ryan Nelson. So all that being said, I think we have a very, very interesting slate, and there's a lot of different stacks we can go to. The one thing I want to point out is I do not think we need to go to this Cincinnati and Miami game, even though the value is saying it to go there, projections are saying to go there, and ownership is saying to go there. It is just one game of 12, and there is pretty high likelihood that another game could outshine that one. So that'll do it for us, folks. It is end of the week. We have All-Star game over this coming week, so I won't be back till next Friday with the Friday show for our first game back after All-Star break. Have a good one, guys. Enjoy your little week break, and I'll be back. Peace.